What's going on, guys? Welcome back to yet another episode of Vaughn Coleman Presents. I am, of course, your host, Vaughn Coleman, and with me today is someone who's been on the channel before, but in case you haven't seen him yet, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Nick Caponi. How you doing, man?
What's up, everyone? How are you tonight?
I'm doing all right. So right off the bat, so Nick has a new book out called Purity. And before we get into that, though, I always like to get a feel for the people who come on my show and what inspired them, where they come from. So, Nick, you are a colorist. You're also writing this one.
Yeah.
And doing more than just like, you're correct me wrong. You're doing pencil. Are you penciling, inking, and coloring it?
No. So for Purity, I'm writing, I'm penciling, and I'm coloring. It's the first book that I decided that I desperately need an inker. I've been inking my own stuff from this point up to this point, but I just learned over time that inking, even though I can get the job done, it's not my strong point, and it's turning into my least favorite stage of the comic making process because like I'll be inking like a page and I'll be like, man, I hate inking.
Yeah,
But
no,
I
get it.
appreciate the people who do it though.
Yeah, I was wondering because it's funny. I always feel like experience is the best teacher. Controversial studying, I know, but no, but it's like it really. I learned so much from just making comics right now and things like because you're like okay, you realize because comics are relatively cheap in terms of when you compare it to say a movie. Like holy god, like a short film. I had a short film that was just like 15 or so minutes that was set in a house. I raised over 4.5K and we went through the whole budget.
Damn.
We shot it like so like but comics, like you think things add up, but not just that. You learn about there's something between whether it's reading a comic and then being through it every step of the way, where it's through the scripting stage, through the pencils, inks, colors, letters, edits, where you really understand the importance of every member of a team. And it seems like you have quite a few strengths, and that's four of them. I have writing and editing.
I think too it's just the fact that like in a perfect world, I think all of us would love to just do every stage to ourselves, and like it saves us so much money and it actually gains us a lot of money, but it's almost I feel like if we're doing it all, you'll see a book come out once a year.
Oh yeah.
Like it's not
even.
Yeah, to keep it more consistent, it's always great to have a team. And then especially, me graduating and going to the Hubert School, we kind of are taught early on how it usually goes, and not only
the reality.
The reality of it, and even just my experience on working on the mainstream end of things with like when I color for Dynamite and Image and Archie, it's like everything is obviously filtered through an editor, but there's a penciler, an inker, a colorist, a letterer. So it's more so it's kind of like what I'm used to. I tried the whole like let me do it all by myself, and that plane has crashed miserably. So
that's good. Yeah, so I did want to so we can get back into just the whole creative discussion, but I guess I should ask then because you've done quite a bit of stuff. It just let's talk about your journey. And so what first got you into comic books and just art?
Oh man.
Creative.
So I mean, I grew up loving Batman the animated series and Spider-Man the animated series and X-Men. I was a huge X-Men kid, but 90s? 90s X-Men. So like that animated series is one of my all-time favorites, and it was a mix of that. I knew that comics existed, and then it wasn't until I actually, even though I do have a background in comics growing up, I was also a huge anime kid. So I was reading manga like Inuyasha, and I was watching, all the WB Kids or whatever it was on. It was like Digimon and Pokemon and stuff. But like
Pokemon was like the one I watched. I didn't watch like any of the other ones.
Yeah, no, it was great. I loved the first like I forgot.
Dude,
what
I know every
was.
theme song at least until I think I know the first 17. That would be a great karaoke night.
I forgot where I don't even know where Pokemon's at these days, to be honest. Like,
dude, I should watch it because I know that Ash won the world championship and I never watched that, but I
Yeah.
should have. But it's
I
like they
know.
have a new protagonist now. Have you been keeping up?
No, I honestly I
Neither
fell
have I.
off even with the games. I fell off right after Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. Like that was the last
Oh, that's
game
when
I
I got on.
finished. Yeah.
I have the new one. What is it? Scarlet? I just haven't played it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ash won the Pokemon League. I just haven't gotten I haven't watched it, dude, the show,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, the new protagonist. I don't know. Anyway, so you got into watching anime and all of
Yeah.
that.
And then anime and then like I just loved just the idea of just, especially with like 90 like as a kid from like the 90s, I just loved the ridiculousness of the art because it's bad and good at the same time in the
What,
best possible
Pokemon?
way. No, just comics.
Oh,
Like,
90s art.
yeah,
Yeah.
so like that also drew me in. Like, I was about the pouches, I was about the shoulder
Mhm.
pads, I was about the ginormous guns that were twice the size of the
Gee, I
person
wonder
using
what
it.
artist you're referring to.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I I am unshamefully a Rob Liefeld fan.
Mhm.
I grew to really like his work. I in the beginning, he's unfortunately was portrayed to me as like the butt of every joke in the industry.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, like don't pull a Liefeld, or like even at the school, the teachers were like, oh yeah, do not draw like Liefeld. But like I think I learned to appreciate his art over time because regardless of the quality of art, it did leave an impact of like that generation.
It
People
did.
still, and he's still, you know, running to the bank when people all talk shit about Rob Liefeld. There's like he's laughing his way to the bank.
Yeah,
So
Bobby's in agreement with you. Now we're
yeah.
talking. I actually, Andy Smith gave this to me because he was just like, you could just take whatever, and I was like, really?
Oh,
He
cool.
redrew. I'm about to get. So I'm reading through like I say Claremont's Run, but it's that and the adjacent books, and I'm reading Louis Simonson and Rob Liefeld's New Mutants. So like the
Ooh.
last issue I read was 89. So
Oh shit.
Cable just took over control of the team where I'm at. So I'm
Yeah.
getting close to but yeah, the pouches galore.
Yeah.
Um, the massive physiques.
Yeah. I
And
just
also,
think
I'm
it's
reading
so
Rob's New Mutants.
yeah, like and even like more in the bad girl sense, like the back breaking like hips and waist. I don't know. It's like
Yeah.
people need to forget it's not like it's stylized.
Mhm.
It's like, you take any fine artist, you take any cartoonist out there, they're going to do the same shit, but for some reason when in the 90s when it happened, they're like, "Oh no, her anatomy is so bad." I'm like, dude, it's stylized. It's fun. It's supposed to be fun. Like I
Mm.
think, like that era of comics, like there's a lot of like, and believe me, there's a lot of bad art in the '90s,
Mm.
but there's just still that charm to it that even to this day, I would just go back to
Yeah.
reading all of that stuff.
This is my next issue to read is right here. So the last one I read was right before that. But wow, some new costumes. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's but okay, they don't have pouches. I will say, Rob, you could have added more pouches on
I
there.
mean, there's no feet in sight, so
Oh shit!
there's no
We got
feet.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I don't.
So
Yeah, I
there's
don't.
14 feet, and he hit all. That's honestly an art within itself,
That's
hiding all
goaded.
14.
I respect it,
I do
honestly.
too, man.
I
I
kind of
love the
respect
X
it.
Force. The X Force #1 cover also strategically hit all the feet.
Yeah.
Oh wait, this one you see all the feet. Look at this. Oh, of course it took me to a fucking shopping link. Anyway, yeah, no, that's. Oh wait, this one. Oh, look at that. They're all hidden. This is the last one I read. They're all hidden on this one too.
Yeah.
That's so good. But look, you can hide your weak. Every artist, everyone in the arts has weaknesses and things that they
Yeah.
strengths and weaknesses, and you gotta. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone got to work on your weaknesses, but at a certain point, it's like, emphasize your strength. Right.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think there's like obviously numerous factors in there. So for example, like you just realize sometimes, and even with comics to this day, you'll get one thing I noticed. If I don't know if anyone's watching is a fan of Sean Murphy, but like there were a few covers he's done which it has almost like an identical layout to it from the
Mhm.
previous one, and the drawing is there. But I have to question it. Maybe it's not the fact of they're intentionally doing it, or they're just thinking like, oh yeah, I'm gonna crop the feet, or this is gonna be an awkward crop. Maybe it's more so like, oh, I had literally like 2 days to do this cover. They
Mhm.
needed this last minute. So like once I started working in the industry and realizing how big of a factor time is,
Oh
and
yeah.
then unfortunately there are some gigs that require you to literally bust your ass and within a week's time to wrap up a book, where others give you like like 5 weeks, which is normal. But
Mhm.
uh, I feel like when you factor in time, I understand more why some artists make those decisions.
Absolutely. I've
Yeah,
seen that. I've been experiencing that too firsthand, working with and without, time limits. When you have it, it's like the gun is on you, and sometimes you do have to. Even you look at some of the bets, like there are Silvestri pages where I'm like, okay, he clearly
yeah.
was on a time crunch with that. And
Oh,
then there's some
absolutely.
stuff where it's like, um, they can't all be like Art Adams, where they give him like they're like, okay, we'll give you like a year to draw like one book,
Yeah. But I also
Um,
think too, you got to realize that even when it comes to drawing panels in a page, you got to go in with the mindset of like, yeah, you want to do your best on each panel, but you got to realize that some readers will just look at that panel for like a millisecond. And sometimes if you're too hard on yourself on a panel and let it eat at you, it's like
mhm,
you're going to just put more stress on you and just waste more time on that panel.
mhm,
It's like there are honestly, and I'll be fully transparent with this, there are some gigs that I'll like say if I'm coloring a book and yeah, like I'm gonna deliver like good quality colors, but I also have a deadline and I
mhm.
can't spend like 5 hours on a panel. I have to
Yeah,
move on. So I assume like even with back then, like even with the quality of art, like like what you said, like you would tell like the art's there, the talent's there, but sometimes there's
deadline. Mhm,
a deadline and there's always those bad panels in there, and you
mhm.
just got to plummet through it and move forward.
Yeah, it's because you only have to look at the panel for what, a couple seconds, right?
Yeah,
Or most
literally.
people do. I mean, I know artists, read art differently. Bobby tells me all the time that when he reads comics, he doesn't. I'm essentially obsolete to an artist. And that's the thing. Even when it comes to writing a script, like I was like today, like I've been revising the same script over and over, and I'm sure there's a certain point where you just kind of gotta let
Hmm.
it go. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, because at the end of the day, the letterer, like I'm taking your advice, I'm gonna, get a letterer to go through it and just kind of be like, okay, not enough or too much or
Yeah.
whatever. Well, I guess not enough's never really a criticism.
Yeah,
Like I'm
I
polite.
always say like, and maybe like the letterer I've been working with for like a couple years now, he's so passionate about lettering to the point where I now get it that lettering, like I think to a degree, each stage of the comic making process can make or break the book, but like at the tail end, like he showed me like what bad lettering looks like on like
Mhm.
how other people letter, and like now I can't unsee it. And
Yeah.
then I'll tell you the truth, like looking back at even stuff from the 90s, there was so much bad lettering that
Mhm.
it's actually distracting, that I can't even focus on the art because I'm like, wow, that balloon is so huge and the font is so small. Like so people realize like it might be like just the general like idea like, oh, it's not a big deal, but like I think from an artistic perspective it's like lettering could really fuck up your book if it's
Yeah.
horrible.
Send me
So
your letterer, by the way.
yeah,
I'm just
we'll
talking
do.
to a few, but
Yeah, we'll do.
so getting back to that, I didn't, that was a whole we could go in with that forever. But so okay, you're reading 90s comic. You started reading comics in the 90s, or
Probably I want to say maybe like 2001, 2, but it was like the tail end of the 90s,
right?
so like you were still getting that art style, you were still getting those like ridiculous stuff,
Mhm.
like the ridiculous crossovers and the random, Witchblade meets Lady Death, all
Mhm.
those like fun
That
little.
sounds like one I should read, and I love Witchblade.
Yeah. It was if I'm not mistaken, it was like a time where Chaos kind of went under, Chaos Comics,
Mhm.
and then they were throwing the character Lady Death around with different publishers, and whatever publisher they were on the time, they were like, let's do medieval Lady Death, which is actually it's a good run. It's the most covered you'd ever see Lady Death, which is hilarious to me. But I believe there was a
Tragic.
yeah, it was a medieval Lady Death meets medieval Witchblade, which is pretty cool.
So okay, so my question then I guess I would have is your first, and correct me, but what made you do the transition from the shows to reading comics? Like, what were the first comics you read?
I'm gonna sound like such a degenerate, but the first comic that I really like, it straight up caught my eye, and I bought it with my own allowance that I had as a little kid, was actually Catwoman number 16, the Jim Ballant run.
I missed
Uh,
him at Garden State.
yeah, oh, he's such a cool guy. I was like talking to him, and actually, I was like talking to him about a potential cover for Purity, like later down the road, and really awesome guy. But he yeah, his stuff, I don't know why it was just so captivating to me. I guess that was like my sexual awakening as a kid when I saw that purple suit Catwoman. I don't know, but like something about it, I picked it up, and it kind of I I'm very passionate about like bad girl comics
Mm-hmm.
specifically because I fell down that rabbit hole very early on, and it's kind of, I guess, kind of gross to think of it like that, like a kid who's like barely 8 years old reading like '90s Catwoman and like
You
you
were
know
8 when you had
right.
your sexual awakening.
No, like as I guess like that's when I started reading those books. Like I was like I had to be like 8, maybe 9 years old. I started reading like the '90s Jim Ballant stuff, and then I remember an issue of his erotic series, Tarot, Witch of the Black Rose, was in there, and I guess my parents didn't realize it, and I didn't realize it at the time before. Like I just saw like a really cool cover, and I was like, all right, and then I took it and I was like reading it, and I was just like, okay, okay. And I guess my parents saw it, and they like confiscated it for me. But I was like, that was completely accidental. That book fell into my pile, and I didn't realize what was inside of it. But
And that was which book again?
Tarot, Witch of the Black Rose. It
Tarot,
was.
which the okay, I've
It's
never heard of that one.
that yeah, it's Jim's series. Him and his wife Holly, they put out that book. It's been going on. I think they just celebrated their like 20th or 25th anniversary, but it's still going, and it's basically it's pure bad girl stuff. If you like, it's more like witches, and there's like two sisters. One's good, one's evil, and really cool designs, and it's cool just seeing Jim Ballant being Jim Ballant. I just
Mhm.
think it's such a cool book.
Dude, that con needs to be 3 days. There's so many people I didn't get to.
Honestly, I want to push it. Like, I mean, I don't know. Some people think it'd be pushing it if it were 4 days, but I think that's a big. That show's getting big enough to the point that at least make it 3 days. But
Yeah.
like, I don't know. You're getting
The
some bigger
attendance
names
was
there.
great this year, man. It was so good.
Yeah.
But okay, so you get into comics at 8 years old. And so at this point, did you know you wanted to be an artist, or did
Yeah.
you just like them?
It was like a mix of things. Like I knew like comics existed, and I at a young age I realized that somebody's making these and getting them printed, and uh, hopefully getting paid for it. And I was like, you know what? Maybe this is an art venue I want to pursue as a career. I think like ultimately I was always wanting to do something in the art field, let alone comics. I think like as like even as a kid, like I was just like, as long as I'm in comics, I don't care what I do, whether if it's like even like now, it's like whether if it was like production or letter, like as long as I was just in the vicinity of working in comics, that's ultimately what I wanted to do. I think growing up, I had my stages of like, oh, I want to work for Disney, and then I want to work as a graphic designer, not knowing what graphic design is. But all the non artsy folks out there keep pitching it to us little kids that that's the only art field that's substantial and will make you money. And so I was like, oh, graphic design, and then children's books, and then like it bounced back, but ultimately it just came back to comics and just
Mhm.
storytelling.
Yeah, so that ultimately was what you decided on then, and so that was at what age? Like, did you really say, you know what, I'm doing
I
comics?
so I've been taking like Saturday cartoon classes at the Cuber school since I was like 11, but it really wasn't until I was maybe 15, 16 where I really knew it's what I wanted to do. Like, granted, I wasn't really an athletic kid. I wasn't really into like any extracurriculars. I was an average student, like grade wise. Like, I really had no other interest but drawing. So like I had this weird, I guess, like aggressive mentality that I would do whatever it takes just to make it in the art field because that's all I'm really good at. Like, that was my mentality at like 16, which is kind of like, I don't know, sad. I don't know, but like it was kind of like I was gunning for it at like 16, 17, and then when I went to school right out of high school, that's when it just became a reality, and like they just pounded all that work on us.
And so what made you, so you set your eyes on the Cubert school, of course, where you know Bobby and Zach. Is that where you went right after high school?
Yeah. I went like it was like a no brainer. At the time, we were looking at other schools like SVA and art institutes, and you know, the Cubert school was local. It was like 20 minutes from my house, and that was a perk. But also, you know, my dad made a good point. Like, fortunately, I'm very grateful for it. My parents were very supportive of my decision. Were they skeptical in the beginning? A little bit. They're like, all right, like freelancing especially is like, it's tough, but they really support if they knew it was what I wanted to do, so they were very supportive of it. So we were looking at the schools, but the thing that my dad didn't really like was when we were looking at places like SVA. You know, maybe it's changed, I don't know, but like you would be doing your major for like 3 days a week, and then you're gonna have to take like bullshit classes like math, English, science. My dad's like, that's not productive. Whereas
Yeah.
the school, you're working, you're drawing every single day, all day, and then more. So it's definitely the more intense approach, but I agreed to where I didn't want to feel like I'm wasting my time doing math, science, English, all that boring stuff when I could be drawing and improving my craft. And so we ultimately, I knew by my senior year, I'm like, I want to go to the Keyword School.
Gotcha, man. Yes, that's really cool that you know, because bullshit classes, that's definitely a big thing too at a lot of
I mean,
colleges.
bullshit to what I wanted to do. I'm not going to
Yeah.
discredit people who are like,
Well,
oh,
no,
but
I
I
mean
like
it's true
math. I like,
though. You know, it's
yeah,
like if you know that. Well, there are also just classes that I'm like, okay, how is this? You know, that are required. That
yeah.
I'm like, eh. So real quick, Heroinberg says, "Hey Vaughn, just got back here. HersheyCon, Nick, your book is hot, and we back sexy heroin. So you've got our money on cover 4. Which verse Evil Sister is tarot, but balance a great influence to have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks
so
so much,
you
man.
gained a backer. That's good, man.
Thanks, man. I
Look at
appreciate it.
you, look at you
Yeah.
already.
We got a backer, and I'm also a fellow Jim Ballant fan. Like,
Yeah.
he's incredible. He's definitely one of my in my top 5 artists. So
You know what? Let's skip to that. All right, top 5 artists, go.
Jaime Hernandez. I love Love and Rockets. Mark Silvestri. He's my favorite image guy. Always. I'm very like everywhere I go, I'll say I'm like, if I had to choose an image guy, like I feel like a lot of people anticipate and want me to say Jim Lee, which I like Jim Lee stuff, but there's something about Mark Silvestri that's just
Yeah.
superior to all of them.
You know who else is a Silvestri guy? Who else
Oh,
thinks he's the best image artist? All the image artists. You know that,
yeah.
right? They all like are in unanimous agreement that like him, and you know that's including some of the later guys, like even Dale Keown. They're still like, no, Silvestri is the best one. Matt
Well,
Hawkins told me Silvestri is the best one.
I
Um,
think too, Silvestri, he focused on like old time classical artists. Like he's an illustrator before he's a storyteller. Like he knows, you know, he focuses on detail, beautiful hatching. His influences are really, like, drawing a blank on me right now, but I like I not Franklin Booth. That there's like a, but like anyways, I think there's a foundation in Mark Silvestri's work that was influenced by like classic traditional illustration and, you know, old school fantasy artists. So like I really think he is just I guess out of all the image guys, I think his work at the time was just the most, I guess, fleshed out, and
yeah.
that's what I just really liked about it. But I like Jim's work. I like Mark Silvestri's work. I do love Terry Dotson.
Hmm.
Uh, I was first introduced to his artwork like in like 2005 when he was doing that Wonder Woman run, which frankly it was actually a really good story. It was when like Wonder Woman didn't want to be Wonder Woman and Cersei took over.
That's my favorite arc, actually.
Yeah.
Because I was like Gail Simone's run, but looking back, my most memorable storyline is that's before Gail. I forget who wrote that. You're talking about all the villains team up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
that was my favorite storyline.
That was my. It came to the point like this was
because it was like the first storyline, and then everything after that was like not as good.
I remember it's kind of embarrassing, but I remember my first ever New York Comic Con was like 2006 or 7, and I was a young little naive little fuck, and I was running around Artist Alley. I'm like, is Terry Dotson here? I gotta find Terry Dotson, and I remember. And looking back, I have like secondhand embarrassment. I like ran to this one guy who was getting interviewed by like a camera crew at his table, and I'm like, I interrupt the interview, and I'm like, excuse me, do you know where Terry Dotson is? And so somewhere in the YouTube universe, there's a video of like 11, 12-year-old Nick Caponi, literally bombarding this interview asking where Terry Dotson is.
Have you found it? Have you found it?
No.
All right, guys. Yeah, we gotta put a bounty on for whoever can find this video of Nick Caponi, and then we're gonna play it live.
Yeah, I forgot which artist it was, but I'll never forget the look that this artist gave me as the interview was going on and me just interrupt. He's like gave me this like glare of death.
Alex VRB says, I hope security interviewed Nick with a leather belt later.
Yeah.
Someone find this shit immediately. Yeah, seriously. What year was this?
This had to be like 2000, whatever year that New York had the anime festival about. I think it was 2007, 2006.
All right, guys, we got to find this shit.
But it was
back to 125.
Yeah.
Ballin is definitely top 10 artists for us too. Others are Hernandez, Bros, Perez, Byrne, Ramita Jr., Frank Cho. I don't know, Vaughn. He's doing Witchblade now, right?
Stepan Sajic has done Witchblade stuff. His erotic book, what's it called? Was it Sunstone or something? The art, it's beautiful. Like, never would I really go for art that looks like sketched out and roughed in and like kind of blocked in with color. But something with Stepan Sajic's work, I think I'm pronouncing his name right or wrong, I don't know, but it's something about his work is just fantastic.
Sounds closer to than whatever the hell I was saying.
Yeah.
But Mark Heike, is it?
I heard of Femforce. I never read Femforce, but
and CU and NJ. Yeah, you'll be next year, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Another artist I have to say, like, and obviously I made like a tweet about it, and this was like the tweet that got the most likes I've ever tweeted, which I was like, okay, cool, I guess. But another influence of mine was always Michael Turner, and I think they celebrated his 14th or 15th anniversary of his passing a few days ago. But
was it? A few days ago, I missed that. I would have posted something about it.
He was definitely up there. But the sad reality was that I didn't learn to appreciate the impact of his work until like in my teens. Like when I was a kid, I was like, oh, fuck this. Like, I don't like this guy's art. And then like as I grew into it and like started really focusing on the art and the storytelling, Michael Turner really is a fantastic storyteller, and is one of my favorites.
He's able to do like, because one of my OCD things that I was getting when I was writing comics was making sure I wasn't putting too many panels or not enough, and I was looking at Michael Turner, and even people don't realize like he was able to do a ton of little panels often on his pages while also doing his panel layouts were great. Obviously I love his first of all, most beautiful woman, like Sarah Fazzini, just like the face. Even I remember they had a fill-in artist that was objectively good for one issue, but I was like, dude, it's just not. I'm not liking it.
I think also,
but it's like when you're sandwiched in between two Michael Turner issues, especially when he defined Witchblade.
If I had to be like super specific with what I like about his work, is just like something about the eyes he draws, something about just the overall facial structure. Like they're just like. Oh man, it's just timeless. I love his stuff, but like I definitely got into him through just Witchblade and just reading lots of Witchblade, and then I think like Sarah Pazzini is like such an incredible character. Like it just proves that You don't need to have. I mean, it's gonna sound contradicting because the Witchblade Gauntlet like kind of is like a symbiote. It makes all these intricate designs on her, but like Sarah Pazzini herself is just a simple character. Like
Yeah.
it shows that you don't have to be super flashy at times with a character to make it an effective character. And like Sarah's just a cop. She wears t-shirt, jeans, or you put a dress on. Like
She always looks good no matter what
yeah,
she
you
wears.
never had to give her like like a crazy overly detailed approach unless she's like in her Witchblade form, which I remember at some shows I got commissioned to draw Witchblade, and the toughest part about that is finding reference because like I said, the gauntlet's kind of like a like the symbiote from Spider-Man, where it just like kind of just like morphs all around your body in some way. So like, there's never, I guess, what you would say like a consistent model sheet or design of like Sarah.
I'm sorry. Now I'm just like lost looking through this art. I remember I was showing Bobby was at my house and I was just showing him Michael Turner art because he had never read Witchblade. And he was like, dude, this is good shit, man. He's looking through Fathom. He's looking through Soulfire. That one's really good. And I didn't really fully discover his work and start getting into Bad Girl stuff until like a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember even he did one of my favorite, like he did the covers, I think, for Identity Crisis. And he did one of my favorite covers that no one really talks about is I want to say it's Identity Crisis #4. It's a simple cover. It's like a black background. Wonder Woman's holding out her lasso of truth and it's glowing and just says,
I know what you're talking about.
I think that's a Michael Turner cover.
I think so. She's just standing there, just going like this. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was Michael Turner.
Yeah, he's one of the best, man. And apparently he was a great guy. I know, Matt Hawkins said that he was his kid's godfather. Dan Fraga said it was his best man at his wedding. Like that he was just like, because people say like, I forget who was the other day that was saying, I often hear people say this person was a nice guy, but like then it's like no, like this person was like a really exceptionally nice guy and super talented.
Yeah, that he's extremely talented. Like, and I always heard he was very kind and just he was just the coolest dude ever. And we lost a good one, sadly.
Even Bobby started incorporating things like he started doing some art for me, and then I was like, oh, like that's interesting to know. So, where he was basically just like, yeah, I got it from Michael Turner. I'm like, it was a week ago. So credit to Bobby. He's like, and within a week, he's already incorporating some Michael Turner.
Oh shit.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Bobby, but I do. I think that was our conversation. You were like, you like Michael Turner, right? But yeah, so did you get your top 5? I'm sorry, was that all of them?
Yo, that's 3. It was Jaime Hernandez, Mark Silvestri, Michael Turner. I do love Darwin Cook. I love like the super stylized, but there's something very like you could tell he looked at a lot of like Dan DeCarlo's Archie and a lot of Alex Toad.
I know you knew his art, but I'm saying you were looking at it and you were like, "Wow, this is really." Because had you read Fathom? I don't know. I know you knew his art, Bobby.
I'll tell you the truth. I like the art for Fathom. The story didn't really pull me in that much.
Agree.
Like it was
it had some great ideas, but I think I personally feel, and I'd love to do episodes. We're gonna do the show Comic Strip Club. You're welcome on, of course.
Okay.
We're gonna go through comics and just like really dissect them and just discuss them. I'd love to do Soulfire and Fathom. I think Soulfire is far superior, even though I like Aspen as a character, not just for the obvious reasons, but I think like Soulfire, because he brought in Jeff Loeb to write it, so he really paced it better and fleshed out the characters in a way. And I think Fathom needed I guess more of a writer, or some more drafts because the art is top notch.
Yeah,
but the ideas are great. But
that's always like a bummer to see, like not just with like that specific book, but just in general, where you have such beautiful art, but like such shit writing or like just bad storytelling. It's just sometimes it just is like.
Yeah, I don't think it's shit storytelling. I just think it's not as good as it.
It's overhyped. Yeah,
I just think it's some great ideas that could have been fleshed out more. I really do, but I still enjoy it. Okay, so now we're at Darwin Cook. That's like big difference from the other 3, but I like it.
Yeah, so like I like when growing up, I also had a background in Archie. I loved Archie, so like that cartooniness really also like captivated me in some way. And so like Darwin, yeah, there was something really like because like the thing with Darwin is he's like you could see that he took inspiration from like Alex Toth and Bruce Timm, and I just like I'm a sucker for overly stylized things. If you haven't noticed, like like Rob Liefeld and stuff, but like Darwin's level of stylization is just fantastic. And again, his storytelling, like New Frontier, I know that's like the cheap way out answer, but New Frontier is pretty freaking good because it's just like the composition and everything and his panel layout, like everything was just fantastic. And yeah, his and even his covers were just fantastic. Like I just love like I said, there's so much information and it's so simplified in his like art where it's like, oh, I didn't realize it was like to look at it like that because he simplified it, but it makes sense. Yeah.
And then your number 5.
My number 5, it has to be. So I said, no wait, hold on. Mark Silvestri, Terry Dotson, Michael Turner, Jaime Hernandez, and Darwin. That's 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. Good stuff, man. So, okay. So getting back to you going to the Cupid school, you're doing that. What made you decide to do coloring?
So since at the school you do everything. So like you have your inking class, you have your narrative class, you have your like which is your penciling class, you have your lettering class, your coloring class. I knew I had different phases where I was going in like period of time like, oh, I want to be a penciler and then I want to be an inker, and then I was like, my penciling's okay, but at the time I didn't feel it would get me work. And then my inking, I just even wasn't a fan of inking. But then I noticed that coloring and a lot of the instructors there were kind of telling me like my strong points were always my colors. And so I by my third year we had a digital painting class with Jan Dersema, and the things she taught, just like color theory, just application, it was just beyond regular comic book coloring. But the fact that I think what fascinated me was the amount of color you could make with just 3 colors, and I'm like, all right, so maybe coloring might be my forte. I was still at the time gunning for interior work as a penciler, but I didn't get really much of a pull from that, but I did get a grab. I want to say maybe 6 months or so after I graduated, I started coloring prints for someone, and then that turned into coloring this one indie project that kind of fell under, and then I kind of made my way. I didn't really break into the mainstream until maybe 2.5 years after I graduated when I broke into Dynamite. I colored Betty Page Unbound #9. I colored that cover by Matt Gaudio.
Was that your first published work?
Not my first published. It was my first mainstream published work. Because like before that, I was just doing a lot of indie stuff and just like private commissions. But that was my first cover with a mainstream company, and yeah, that was a whole like I made it moment. Like Betty Page, it was interesting. They made a comic out of her, but I liked the versatility they did with her. Like she was that sexy character that you just put in any situation. So it was a lot of fun. The cover, I remember it being she was like a space babe. She was like fighting off aliens, and yeah, I remember that was my first published work, and then the next thing I got from Dynamite, I colored a Green Hornet story. So.
Yeah, Bobby was saying, hang on, Bobby said, I remember this. Green Hornet was your first interiors, right? I was so pumped when you got that issue, Con.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, that was my first
interior. Where the hell is Zach, by the way? I texted, because you guys are yelling at me from my phone, which first of all, misinformation. I just said, Zach, I'm interviewing Nick, so I'm got to get. The thing is, I might regret that because Zach's going to start acting like an idiot in the chat, but we'll see. Anyway.
Yeah, and then after that, I was doing a lot of indie stuff with like Sonopa Publishing, which puts out Rain, and this was like early Sonopa Publishing, where they Sam Quinton, he hired me to do like background art. So he started Sonopa started out as like a company that put out um, like playable content that you could play in like any role playing game, 5e, D&D. And so like the border, he hired me for a while to do just border art for the interior pages. Then he's like, "Oh wait, let's put Nick on interiors." And so I started coloring a few things with them. And then I was like bouncing around. I did some like a few things with Scout on their Black Caravan label. I did uh, Gods of, I think it's called Gods of Brutality, and drawing a blank. There was another book I did with Scout, and then I played around with Source Point Press, and then I landed at New York Comic Con 2 years ago almost. I landed an Archie gig with Bill Walko and an image gig with Bill Walko. I did a color to cover for the book Stray Dogs, and yeah, he's a really awesome guy, and like I said, it was an honor to even work with Image because growing up I was an Image kid. I loved all those characters, so even if it wasn't the character you would like, I would always dream of working on, it's still you're working for Image, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh hey, it's pretty cool.
You
And
ever
then
get to
like
the big two or no?
not yet,
You
but like
planning on it?
it's a weird feeling because years ago, if you asked me this like 10 years ago, I would say like, yeah, like I want a
Hmm.
gun for, I was more a DC kid instead of Marvel.
Hmm.
Even to this day, and Marvel really doesn't excite me. But
Hmm.
like, with that said, like I might not gun for the big two, but say if out of nowhere, I get asked to color something for DC or Marvel, I'm gonna say yes. I'm not gonna be
Hmm.
like, well, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna color for DC or Marvel. I would definitely take the offer, but it's definitely once I started really diving more into indie, it wasn't as big as a priority as I was always grown up to believe. Like as a kid, like my parents like, oh, you got a gun for Marvel, you got a gun for DC, and I feel like even to this day, people who still do that, like you're disregarding all the other companies that are out there. I mean, like you give them all a chance. It's not always DC and Marvel, like,
Hmm.
and that's why I try and push with people. It's like they have everlasting characters that impacted us all, but
Yeah.
looking at the bigger picture, you can take it even further. You could
This. Yeah.
like, yeah,
There's a lot of innovation that comes out of the indies because I got in through the big two,
yeah,
and then I've expanded to now I mostly read indie stuff. Honestly, at least in terms of news, kind of news stuff, I read a lot of older. Um, uh, but yeah, I mean, totally. That's so you've been doing a lot of coloring. I imagine that gets you because so many people I know want to be pencilers, right? I
hmm
imagine letterers. I imagine if someone specializes in lettering, they must get a lot of work. But
yeah.
coloring, I imagine too.
So I'll never forget. Also a thing, and it makes sense now too. When I was like really early on, like I was like finding work, and I was dabbling in coloring. I wasn't fully into it yet. I was at like a sketch event in a local shop, and I was tabled next to a colorist, and he was telling me just like advice with the industry, and he's like, just remember one thing. It's tougher to break in, especially with the big two. It's tougher to break in as a penciler and an inker because I don't want to say you have to be grandfathered in, but they have the people they want to work with.
Mhm,
But they're always going to need a new colorist, and they're always going to need a new letterer, always.
mhm,
And so, and it makes sense now because like companies are always looking for colorists. They're always looking for letterers. And when I started working with my letterer Taylor Esposito, he's lettered everything under the sun. DC,
mhm.
Marvel,
Yeah, my
everything.
first two books I worked on, he lettered.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
And he even told me like early on that, letterers and colorists are some of the most connected people because, you're working with all these different people. Like, it didn't hit me until like 2 years ago. I was working on a book for Apex Comics where I was working with Chris Batista, and I've known Chris for a while, so it was pretty cool. But the writing was Fabian Nicieza. I think that's how you
Mhm.
pronounce his last name. Like, he co-created Venom and Deadpool. I'm like, that's fucking baller. And like, people see that. And then I also colored for this big Canadian artist. Her name's Giselle Lagasse. She has like a very known webcomic called Pixie Tricks Comics, and
Mhm.
coloring for her too. Like, people started, and that's actually kind of how I got my Archie gig, because Bill Walko, he's a huge fan of Giselle, and he's like, "Oh, you're the colorist who colored over Giselle," and then he's like, "Can you color some of my stuff?" So like he and just looking back at that, it's true what those two guys have said. It was just, we're some of the most connected people in a sense, because we're constantly working with new talent, and we're
Mhm.
constantly, so there are some people like, you'll never like, I didn't get the cut, I didn't, but like there was like there was a book that what's his face, Brian Michael Bendis was doing, and I almost was gonna be on that book, but they went a different direction. But like, just even the fact, like, oh shit, I would have potentially been on a book with Brian Michael Bendis. That's freaking awesome. But like, it's all about networking, and I think colorists and letterers especially. Um, and it's funny because I shot my shot with Coffin Comics with Lady Death, and I was referred to this guy named Marshall Dillon, and he's awesome. He's a really cool guy. And I go to Taylor, and I was like, "Hey, if you ever need coffin work, here's this guy's email, Marshall." He's like, "Oh shit, you know Marshall?" I'm like,
Mhm.
well, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, him and I are good friends. He's a letterer too." I'm like, just like that. I'm like, "Shit, that's."
Yeah.
Like, right there. So it's really important, just even for like people who want to break into the industry. Networking is kind of like your IV, your lifeline, your life support. It talent you need, but the networking is what keeps you afloat. And especially with coloring, I feel it's just like a huge hub, because
Mhm.
you're exposed to so many different artists and working on so many different projects. And as I said, a lot of publishers are always looking for colorists and letterers.
Yeah, dude, I might have to hold on. Speaking of networking, the two best networking people I know on screen at the same time. Yuri. Oh, thanks, Bobby. By the way, guys, real quick, just shout out to Bobby. He's got Brew Tour on the way.
Yo,
If someone wants to
Bobby.
link that in the chat, I'm writing that book. I really like your work there, Nick. Might hit you color some. Oh, color is that you Canadian spell color, Jay? I know the Brits do.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Hey,
there
hit
you
me
go.
up
Look
on.
at you. See, look at
Yeah,
how good the Vaughn Coleman Presents show is,
yeah, man.
guys.
I
Look at how
appreciate
good.
it. Yeah.
Also, see what I mean? Everyone's like a colorist because I don't think I've ever had someone who specializes in coloring on, and now everyone's uh, oh my god, Nick, we need to.
Yeah.
Dude, I wonder if I get a letterer on, if that'll be a big hit. I never
Yeah.
thought of that.
Like, it's so funny, like with someone like Taylor too, when he letters, like he knows so many people, and whenever I go to like a local shop, I'll send him a photo of like a random book he hasn't lettered, and I'll be like, come on, dude, do fucking
Do
better.
better,
Like,
yeah.
what the fuck is this? You're not lettering this book?
Yeah.
How fucking dare you?
This is
But
my
like,
first book, and he lettered it, man. And then
yeah,
Star
he's a
Riders,
good.
which I think just wrapped up
Yeah.
on Kickstarter,
Oh shit.
lettered. But okay, so you've got that's really cool, man. So do you have any favorite colorists then?
Oh, I love Matt Lopez.
Mm-hmm.
He colors a lot of the Sandman stuff, Supergirl, Girl Tomorrow. I just love that like Mobius. I'm a sucker for Mobius, but like that Mobius esque color where it's like flat colors and it's like heavily reliant on color theory and color palettes. Like I love Matt Lopez. Tomeo Mari is really awesome. Like, I like how he colors over Clayman stuff. Um, I mean, Alex Sinclair, like,
Mm-hmm.
I love his colors. Really, I've talked to him numerous times. Really awesome guy.
Yeah.
I dig him. Paul
I
Mounts.
was about to say Paul Mounts. I know. Yeah,
Paul
Paul
Mounts. I
Mounts is
love how he
great.
colors over Amanda Conner
Amanda
stuff.
Con. Yep.
Especially his Red Sonja run. Some of the best color work I've seen.
I haven't. Wait, which is his Red Sonja run?
I think it was just like the regular Red
Was it
Sonja
recent?
series, but Amanda was doing all of the covers for her, the majority of the covers, and there was one where he basically made the hair into like kind of like a designy flame thing, but like fully shaded her body, and it was like like I think he treated a lot of those covers like Frazetta-esque like fantasy illustrations, and I really appreciated that. And yeah, Paul is like one of my favorite colorists.
Amounts great.
Yeah, but it's tough because like that's a like I'm very happy you asked that, because whenever I tell that to some random person, like, oh, he's my favorite colorist, or like, what's a colorist, or like, who I thought the artist did the colors, and I'm like, no, that's always rare unless you're like, I mean, there's like, I think it's more prominent in like European comics that the artist does the colors, since a lot of it's more painterly and traditional. But yeah, like a lot of your fan favorite artists most likely have a colorist. They're not just doing it on their own.
Except you're the exception. And real quick, while we have 12 people in the chat, and by the way, if you guys haven't already, please make sure to like, subscribe, share the link out if you can, and most importantly, check out Purity. So Nick, why don't we've been, because we'll get back to everything. Real quick, why don't you tell everyone about your book? Some people might have seen you on my channel before, but most probably haven't. So either way, they'll need a reminder. Tell everyone about Purity.
So Purity is a bad girl comic that really has been in the making for 14 years, and basically it starts off in the Salem witch trials. I'm a history buff. I love that era of American history, early American history. But it starts off with a Puritan girl who is sentenced to death for the murder of an infant and witchcraft. And the thing is, she never did any of that. She was wrongfully accused by her sister, who's the actual witch, and it was all part of this this whole plan to gain immortality by Satan. And in order to do that, there had to be a blood sacrifice, and the sister had to exchange her soul with Satan for the soul of a virgin. So she chose her sister, and that's why Purity goes down to the underworld when she did nothing. So
her sister sacrifices her.
Wait, what?
So wait, Purity's sister sacrifices her?
Yes. And it's to grant immortality. So the sister stays above in the mortal world, where when Purity is well, that too. But
Bobby's a big plot guy.
Yeah, he loves for the plot. But yeah, she goes down to hell, and she's enslaved for 500 years, and she one day just has it, and she wants to seek revenge on her sister. She finds out the truth on why she's down there, and she decides to escape hell. And with all the obstacles thrown at her, she escapes hell. And it's kind of like the movie Little Nicky, where she leaves hell and it freezes hell's gates, and no new souls can come in, and Satan doesn't like that. So Purity is in the mortal world, and Satan is throwing some obstacles her way while she's on a mission to find her sister and take out her sister. So that's the plot for issue 1. There's so much in store. If you like heaven and hell characters, if you like I said, the bad girl genre, if you like even a touch of futurism, if you like that stuff, like some sci-fi elements to it, this book is for you. It's going to be an ongoing series. This is going to sound very pretentious coming from me, but I kind of want to treat it super 90s, where kind of like the Witchblade-esque, where there's so many issues, there's crossovers, there's omnibus books, there's graphic novels, and then there's action figures. Like, I want it. Like, I want that all for Purity, and it's definitely, like I said, it's been in the making for 14 years, and ever since I published Reign of Ages with Sinopa Publishing, it kind of gave me that confidence to do my first fully solo Kickstarter campaign, and I was like, all right, the time is now to put out Purity.
That's good stuff, man. So I'm looking. So what are your biggest inspirations when it comes to this book?
Man, It's definitely like Michael Turner, Jim Ballant, all the bad girl guys. Like this is a full fledged bad girl book. There's tits and ass, there's action, there's gore. The one thing I do want to make note of is, especially with like all the Salem witch trial stuff, the book is obviously 18 plus, but obviously I wanted to keep it very historically accurate for that time period. So there's like some graphic scenes in Pearson. Just a heads up, like I don't know, like just wanted to throw it out there. But yeah, it has all the the TNA, it has the
so it's not following the comics code then.
It follows the indie comics code where I
which is making money.
Yeah,
and doing and having freedom. That's the code I follow. So that's in terms of story, I've only seen the Lady Death movie. I have like a few issues that I just haven't read yet. I intend to get into it, but I know you're a huge Lady Death fan. Yes. Is that a big source of inspiration?
Yes, absolutely. I don't think I would have had a fleshed out character like this if I never read Lady Death. Because I think that the thing about Lady Death is, like Witchblade, like all those characters of that time, it's a perfect balancing act because you have a really badass character, you have a sexy badass character, and you actually have a decent story. You have a really good story. Lady Death, she's fighting for revenge. She was her dad was Lucifer himself, and she was just an innocent girl wanting to live her life, and she was killed for the sins of her father, and she wants to and then she wants to take over hell, but even though she takes over hell, she's still somewhat of an anti-hero in a sense of she'll kill you, but she's not gonna, like, there's still a moral code, and so I think there's like a lot of different aspects that I was inspired by growing up on Lady Death, and the fact that you could just do so much with that character. I'm a fantasy buff too, so it's high fantasy, really all around well-rounded character. So I definitely she was an inspiration, and she's always like, even with like Reign of Ages and like other bad girl stuff I've worked on, even the way I colored, like it wouldn't have really been possible without Lady Death. Like that's just like a comfort character. I have a Lady Death tattoo on my thigh, but it would require me to pull down my pants in front of all you guys.
We don't need it. I'll take your word for it, man.
But yeah, no, she's definitely one of the inspirations. I also really respect the hustle of the character, and just Brian Pulido. I kind of call him the king of Kickstarter, because his campaigns on average fund at least like $600,000 in like the first day. So like I respect the hell out of that. I respect like what he's done for the character. He's really changed the game for indie, and especially the bad girl genre. I think we wouldn't have as many bad girl books now if it weren't for Lady Death and the impact, like especially like hellish characters, I should say.
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, and again, I see a lot of Lady Death in this. I've only seen the movie. I really liked the movie.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned it was different, which surprised me. Again, I didn't know, but I just usually animated movies are at least closer. And I really liked her in the animated movie, Lady Death, as a character.
Yeah, really cool design too. Like she's scantily clad, but it just works so well with just the whole story. So
yeah, I thought it was a badass movie, and I'll have to, I'll definitely, my reading list is, but I'll definitely have to get around to it. I've read She and Witchblade, so some Vampirella.
I think like the more you dive down the bad girl rabbit hole, you start to realize like Witchblade, like there is also good girl comics. So there's bad girl, and I learned this about like a few years ago. There is a good girl comic genre, and I think Witchblade's, like if it's like apples to oranges. If you compare like Lady Death to Witchblade's more of a good girl character, whereas Lady Death is just a bad girl character. I think it has to obviously a heaven and hell kind of aspect to it. Okay. But
would you consider She a good girl?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because Billy Tucci always calls She a bad girl. So
yeah, I mean, it's still like the genre is still that broad spectrum where it's like bad girl comics. You got a sexy badass babe. But I think something like Witchblade was more because I think like Lady Death, they were still pretty indie when and then Witchblade became like the part of somewhat mainstream, where I think they kind of made her more of like a good girl, like a good character, like a heroic-esque character. Like, because I think also with bad girl characters, their moral alignment's always like in the anti-hero field because they could switch like that or like if you really think of it, Catwoman's a bad girl character because she's not on the right side, the wrong side, she's on her side. So I think that also plays an effect. Whereas sometimes I feel like Sarah Pazzini was always just, since she's a cop, she's more of
she's more like
a Girl Scout, like very heroic and very like good morally aligned, like, you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of things that go into play with it, but I definitely think Witchblade compared to like Lady Death is more of a good girl character.
Absolutely. Bobby with the classes. Oh, I'm not even. So okay. So this book is it's 28 pages, right? For 15.
Yep. 24 pages of story and then 28 pages as a whole.
Right. So there we go. We got all these are the perks, guys. Make sure to check it out. You can get it digital print bundle. It's like just basically a digital copy of a print. And then you have so you have all these. There's a lot of digital bundles. And then you've got, you can get it cover A 15. We got a few covers. All of these are 15. I know someone mentioned D. And you colored all these, right? Or most of them?
Everyone except cover E. But I have like a weird golden rule. I'm a little more lenient with it now, but my golden rule always was to, if I hire someone to do a cover, I always give the offer like, I'd love to color it. Partially, it's just the fact of like, I guess resume purposes, it'd be like, oh, I colored over this person, it's really cool.
That's big
but
brain.
like I also want to like, but I also look at it in a way of like, I really want to color over this person. I just want to color it. But obviously I respect all the artist wishes. Like some of them, and I didn't know this because it's never happened to me, but some artists are like contractually linked to a colorist. Like they color everything of theirs.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, some artists
Is that
do
true
that.
Pencilers and inkers too?
Maybe. I don't know, but I know there was a few that I knew that have like a contracted colorist for all of their stuff, and like nothing wrong with that. So I so I respect that. Or like there are some, like I'm already doing some issue 2 stuff, and like one cover artist specifically, I'm gonna leave his name out of it because it's a surprise. He's a big guy, but he wanted to color his own, like, because he colors all of his covers. So I was like, all right, I respect that. So I'm not gonna push anything. Yeah, no, I wish. but yeah, so usually I'm more lenient with it now, but I always leave that offer open. So I try and color all the covers. So everything but cover E for issue 1 is all colored by me.
It's good stuff, man. It's good. So everyone make sure to check out this book. And are you planning on running this for like a while? This series?
100%. As I said before, I want to my little pretentious statement. I kind of want to make it like an ongoing thing. Have like your trades, then you have your crossovers, your omnibus books. Like I want to have like years and years of content compiled into just like a collection. So and then like another thing too, I want to also dive into the idea of making action figures. There's one creator, I think his name is Tom Hutchinson. He has a Bad Girl book and he made action figures, and I think he used the same guys who did the Lady Death action figures, but they're really cool. Like even at Garden State, I saw like EVS's Cyberfrog like action figure. Like just the idea of having
kids' attentions too. By the
way.
Kids Like they just, they see an action figure and then they go to the comics,
Yeah, and I think also that to me is a milestone where it's just like you have a character that I don't want to say is like deemed worthy, because I could order an action figure, I can come up with a design now and order it somewhere, but like I think there's something special of having like a 3D action figure of your character that you could like pose, and like there's just something very sentimental about it. So like obviously I wanna get to that point eventually, but Purity especially is just like I said, it's a nod to all the greats of Bad Girl comics and all the artists and stories, and as cringy as it sounds, in the title of if you could kind of see it, it says the newest bad girl on the block. I just wanted to bring something new and exciting to fans of bad girl characters.
Yeah. I'm pissed. I think I lost my Cyberfrog PVC toy, but it was only $10. But I looked at my suitcase. I was like, no, I was panicking. But whatever. All right, so Bad Girl. There's a lot of. So let me ask you because I like to ask some of the harder questions.
Yeah.
Real quick. So there's a lot of Bad Girl books. Everyone wants to do one. Everyone wants to read them. No surprise. Obviously, you can tell. 125. We could get that number higher though, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
Why your book? Like what is something that you can get from Purity that you can't get from somewhere else?
I think you could just get a new adventure, like with like it has that 90s element to it, but it's kind of what I was working with this one guy, and I asked him what way should I color his stuff, and he told me there's a style that he wants called 90s polished. And it's kind of like what you would see in modern bad girl stuff now, but I want to take that word and make it more in terms of the story and the character, where it's 90s polished, so it's everything that's great in the 90s, but it's upgraded, it's new and exciting. And I feel like this character has elements of like heaven and hell, and there's so many different creatures. Like it's very metal. If you like metal music, this character is very up your alley. So there's a few things that come in play, but I think ultimately Purity brings a new, updated, fresh feeling to the bad girl genre, with also giving that nod to the 90s.
Absolutely. All right, that's good. That's good stuff, man. I always like when people, they do something different, but they wear their inspirations on their sleeve, and I think you definitely do that.
Absolutely.
So I have a question. You're doing Kickstarter. Are you planning on doing any other platforms too after this, or?
I'm debating on doing Indiegogo. One cool thing that we do with like Reign of Ages, if we switch platforms for like a reprint, for example, if we're gonna relaunch, say if I relaunch Purity issue 1, I like the idea where what we do with Reign, where it's like we have an Indiegogo exclusive cover, so it's not like you're gonna go back the same exact thing. There's still something new to it. So I'm definitely debating on once this campaign ends, wait a little bit, a few months before issue 2 launches, but I might launch an Indiegogo with a brand new cover. That way it's just something new and exciting, especially if you're into collecting covers. Definitely I would go down that route. It's still pretty up in the air, but I've thought about it, hopping over, doing Indiegogo. I know there's another, I don't know if it's still a thing, but there's one called Crowdfunder. It's like with an R. It's like crowdfund with an R. I know some people go on there. I don't know if it's good or not, but I know people are venturing out. But definitely in regards to like Indiegogo,
I know the big two are Indiegogo and Kickstarter.
Yeah,
the big ones. Those I'm launching. I was just curious because I know a lot of people like to just kind of you want to spread it and get as many eyes on this as you possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you will. It's a pretty eye-catching book.
Thank you.
So there we go. All right. So I think we've talked a lot about all your influences, and I'm surprised honestly that considering your style is very anime influence, that of your top 5 you didn't mention any
I mean,
manga or anime or manga artists.
I mean, if there was a sixth, I'd say Rumiko Takahashi, the artist for Inuyasha.
Mm-hmm.
But I think more so it's the genre as a whole that influenced me, and especially 90s anime. There was just such a charm to that era of animation and just manga that was being put out that it was just so captivating. Like I really can't read modern manga anymore, which sucks. I think the last one I really got a hold of in reading was One Punch Man, and I'm really behind on that. But like for some reason it's so tough to get into new age manga. I think anything past like 2005, no, I'm sorry, like maybe like 2008, it's like tough to just watch. Like I don't watch Demon Slayer, I don't watch
I need
Attack
to
on
finish
Titan.
Demon Slayer season 3. I've been
Yeah.
so working on stuff that it's like consuming entertainment falls. But no, Demon Slayer is the shit, man. I love
Yeah,
it.
like
I just haven't finished season 3. That
yeah,
is gonna
no,
be fun.
I mean I've seen clips, like the animation's gorgeous, but
Oh
I think
man.
like something about it just doesn't pull me in. Like something in like the 90s, it was just, everyone had like there was like just like beautiful, like a lot of like the backgrounds I think were like traditionally painted
Now,
and
if the main
yeah.
character looked like Purity,
Oh yeah, sure,
there we go. That's the
sure.
answer. Now, if there was someone like Faye Valentine in it,
Yeah, like I would
you
I
like
would
Cowboy Bebop, right?
no.
No.
I never watched it.
Oh,
I
that
know.
is a fucking
I have to
great
give
one.
it a shot. I think yeah, like I said, I was more of a fantasy guy. Sci-fi, it was a little tough for me to really
So
get
you're very
into.
much like a genre then guy, like
Yeah.
fantasy. What do I? All right, guy. Where are the weeaboos in my chat? You guys help me out with this, please.
I mean, the last I mean, I watched like Food Wars. That was pretty
Food
funny.
Wars. I'm more of a food battle guy.
Yeah. Um
You know what I'm
there
talking
was
about?
I mean, I liked Bubblegum Crisis, if anyone knows. And that's sci-fi, which kind of is, like I said, surprising. I also like Elfen Lied. That's a very graphic anime that I shouldn't have been watching when I was like 11 years old. But um, Elfen Lied was pretty good. I'm trying to think what else. Like I said, Inuyasha was great because it was like an adventure story. Every episode, there's a new adventure, a new task. You had really captivating characters. And like I said, the animation was just gorgeous for Inuyasha. So yeah, I'm definitely, like I said, like it's more. I don't know why I can't get into modern anime these days. Like, there's just something about it. I think the aspect that each character had their own special look. I feel like as we progress more digitally with anime, you could see that a lot of the faces are very cut and paste. A lot of the designs are very generic looking. A lot like there's not that spark that I feel the '90s had. Triple X Hall. I saw like
Yeah, I haven't heard of that one. I
Triple X
couldn't get
Holic
into
is
my
very
dress up darling because the main character was like the whole time he was like the whole
my
fucking
dress up
the whole
darling is great.
episode where it was like the whole episode where she's in his room in a bikini and every time she asks him to
Yeah.
do anything he like freezes up. I'm like, I can't watch like 8 episodes.
You should definitely, Vaughn, watch Triple X
The
Holic.
girl was
though.
hot, but the guy was so annoying. I couldn't get like with
Yeah,
that
well,
My
'cause
Hero Academia. I like it, but I always have mixed thoughts.
I
You
hate.
know, I go through phases where I can really get into it, and then where I'm like, I've had enough. Like I
So
had
what?
most through season 5, but I'm like, we got through
Yeah.
like half a season of a training arc, and now they're doing internships. I'm like,
Yeah, I just couldn't fathom Deku, but I also am a firm believer. This is just like a weird hot take of mine that there wouldn't be a My Hero Academia if Sky High wasn't a thing. Remember the Disney movie Sky High?
of
It's
course I
literally the
know
same.
it's Sky High.
It's
Incredible.
it's literally the same concept, a school for superheroes, and
You know who did that first? X-Men.
yeah, I mean, yeah, spot on. But like even to like My Hero, there's just something very unbearable about Deku. I really hate. And like Deku is like the Eric Cartman of anime, where I just
Eric
want to hit.
Cartman's so
I
funny
literally
though.
no, but I literally want to hit him with my car. Like I literally just like, and that's how I feel about Deku. Like there's just something about Deku that is like unbearable to me, and it just really takes away from the show to the point where I can't watch it.
Yeah, I get it. Like a protagonist is very important, and if you don't like the protagonist, it doesn't matter how great the sport.
I mean, I thought like a character like Froppy was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I like the character designs in that show a lot.
Yeah,
great.
Actually, an anime that had like very solid character designs is have you ever watched Soul Eater? Soul Eater.
No, I haven't. I hear it's great.
Oh, it's fantastic.
My to consume list. I don't even think reading, watch, whatever is so massive, man. I just haven't gotten to it.
Yeah.
Entertainment, and then there's always so much. And here we are adding to the pile. Yeah, I agree. Cartman makes South Park.
I mean,
well, here's the thing: every problem in the show is always Cartman's fault.
Exactly.
It's really funny. Yeah, it's really good. He's both the protagonist and the antagonist.
Yeah.
At the same time, like he causes the problems, or he'll make the problems worse.
I just feel like it's more so you look at Cartman, like Cartman's just in the way. Like I know I'm just thinking too deep of a show like South Park, but like a character like Cartman or like a character like Deku, like I get the story revolves around him, he's a main character, but like I just feel like Deku just gets in the way.
Yeah, it's an odd. Never would have thought to make that comparison. That's
like.
So I mean, it's but I also know because I want to ask. We've talked about people know you mostly as a colorist. People know you now as an artist. But what about you're a writer now too? Is this your first thing you've written?
Yeah. Well, technically second. I did a 8-pager for Sonoma Publishing a few years back. It was my own story, and unfortunately the book didn't fund, so it's kind of like in my archives. But this is my second published attempt of writing. I did write I did co-write a webcomic a while back called Sinister Sisters with Christian Martinez. If you like Dungeons and Dragons, it's about a hobgoblin and a vampire. They become friends. It's on Webtoon. There were episodes I would write, but since they were like I never really, those were like short term writing things. So there was like, I write like an episode, which is like 6-7 panels, or maybe like 2 episodes, which is like 14 panels. Whereas now I'm writing a 24-page book. So this is definitely more of my legitimate, like, I don't want to use the word legitimate attempt at writing, but like it's more of a fully fleshed out version of my writing, I should say.
Absolutely. Okay, so who are some of your favorite artists then? I mean, not favorite artists. Sorry, favorite writers.
I definitely will say John Byrne and Chris Claremont were two.
Oh yeah,
and then
speaking my language.
And then like Jaime Hernandez. I watched a really cool interview with Jaime Hernandez and just his tale on like Love and Rockets, and not only the characters are written as time progressed, but what I really find fairly masterful is Jaime actually ages the character as the years progress, like physically. So you're aging the character in writing and you're aging the character in drawing, and I think that's just incredible character design and progression. You have your I think also too, a book like Love and Rockets is more slice of life, so you could definitely incorporate life experiences. But I think it's just really cool that he ages the character as he goes. So I think that's a very incredible writing win. And then I love one of my favorite X-Men run was always the Phoenix and Dark Phoenix saga. I've read that saga countless times.
Oh yeah,
and just. It made me so angry as a kid that like it took now 3 attempts at doing something with the Phoenix saga, and each time in film is just terrible. I get it, it's a huge story, there's so much going on, but I think
they just don't get it, man. They don't. Yeah, let's kill off Cyclops in the first 5 minutes of the Dark Phoenix saga. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Off screen?
But the thing is, what I think it lacked was, they made it more of like a rom-com, not rom-com, like a romance drama where it really was only affecting Scott. Where in the story, it affected the whole team. They had to deal with losing their friend.
It affected Scott for all 5 minutes that he was on screen in the last stand.
but like it never like
it affected him, it killed him, and
yeah.
then we moved on. I think what's funny too. I'm hearing. I actually asked Chris Claremont what his favorite story was, and he said that he's written because he said a lot of his favorite stories he never got to write would be you know he said it was Dark Phoenix.
Yeah.
His favorite. And
Yeah.
I mean, you think that, oh, that's an easy answer. I mean, yeah, but it's also look at how many of the most iconic stories he's written.
Yeah.
Days
And
of
like
Past was like not even a year
the
later.
one thing the movies just always forget, they always miss. One of my favorite parts was the Shi'ar. The
Oh yeah,
whole
the final battle on the moon.
yeah, they're all like yeah, so your friend is causing a mass genocide in space, ate a
Yeah,
fucking star, and so we're gonna tell you guys that if you don't kill her, we're gonna kill her.
yeah,
But that was never brought up in the movies. I think in Dark Phoenix there was an alien race that came down, but it's not the Shi'ar. But
yeah.
like they didn't even like go over like
And then there was like
Lilandra and
discount Emma
Professor X.
Frost too,
Yeah, yeah,
because
and
like
like
they killed Emma Frost because they didn't plan it out. Which, to be fair, in the original Dark Phoenix saga, apparently wasn't that planned out. Like it really, like Jean Grey. It's not like they knew where it was like from what I understand, it was one of those Marvel method things where it was like Chris Claremont said, oh, she causes havoc in space. And then John Byrne took that to the next level where she wipes out a galaxy.
yeah.
And then Jim Shooter was like, well, hold on. No, you can't just say, oh, she's fine. She's out of mind control. You can't do that.
Yeah. Oh, man.
It's
It's such a well-rounded story, beginning to end, and like it's affected just how
Kitty
they write
Pryde,
the. Yeah,
Emma Frost, Sebastian
mhm.
Shaw, Dazzler. I mean, it's so
Yeah,
good, dude.
that's to name a few. Yeah, and like it's almost comical now because I think Jean Grey has the most deaths in comics. Like I think she's died canonically. I think at least 30 something, like 35 times.
30.
Maybe no, I
Man.
think I read it somewhere. Like she's like one of the characters that like canonically died like the most.
Well, do you count Madeline Pryor as a Jean Grey death?
No, she's a
Okay.
clone. She's a
Because I'm
clone.
trying to think of what I've read, she's died. Well, probably in the new X-Men comics, death means nothing, and that which is
Yeah.
so like literally like she's died at least once. So in that, so if we're not counting other universes, she's died. Dark Phoenix,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess it depends on how you define death. I would say she's only died like in 2 comics I read, and one of them was one of the more recent ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, but like
Wolverine has died more in what I've read. I mean, he dies in Days of Future Past. Well, I guess technically, if we're being, it was off panel, but I guess technically she died in the Days of Future Past timeline because
yeah,
everyone basically does. Yeah, I think everyone actually does die in that timeline.
yeah. It's been a while since I read Days of Future
So,
Past.
yeah, man, that's another one I'll definitely have to talk on my show. Okay, so you've got good taste in writers, you've got good taste in artists, everything. You're at Garden State Comic Fest. If you guys didn't meet Nick this weekend, you should have. He was right across from the Tooch. If you guys were there. Also, you're a fellow New Jersey boy. We didn't
Yes,
talk about that
absolutely.
much, but yeah, were.
Yeah, it was kind of like I was doing a panel at MegaCon Orlando, and a friend of mine was like at a table near there. I was like getting off the panel. I was like, "All right, how'd I do?" And he goes, "You did good, but you said the forbidden thing. You shouldn't stay out of state." I'm like, "Out of state? What do you mean? What did I say?" He's like, when you were saying you're from New Jersey, like, you thought you would say like, "Oh, I'm from New Jersey," but like when I was saying it to the people, I'm like, "Oh, I'm from Jersey," and I'm like, "Oh
Yeah, I've been
shit."
told that
I
the
was like,
past.
motherfucker.
I think Tom DeFalco gave me crap for saying I'm from Jersey. He's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, well, I don't say I'm from York."
Yeah.
Right, man. It's
Like
fine.
even this weekend, like we people love to say New Jersey, especially New Yorkers. Sorry, Bobby, but like New Yorkers always love to shit on New Jersey, but you guys invade our shores. You
Yeah,
invade our
every summer
like
you guys come.
you guys
Yeah.
are the reason why the word Benny exists. Like
Oh, yep.
you guys are
You're
like
speaking my
literally driving
language.
to the shore yesterday. It took me I'm only in Livingston, so that's like an hour and 20 minutes like max from the shore. It took me 3 hours to get to the shore, and I saw nothing but New York and PA plates. I'm like, you fuckers. Yeah, but yeah, no,
Buffy's already coping. No, you're right. You're 100% right, and everyone else is wrong. All right, Nick, it's been great having you on the show. Seems like you've already picked up 2 backers during the stream. You'll definitely pick up more. Seems like you might be picking up some work too.
Yeah. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And anything else? Where can people keep up with you?
I'm
for those that are watching in the future after this is already funded, where will people be able to back Purity?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Nick Caponi Art. It's the same for both. You could once the campaign ends, I'll have a lot of copies. Shoot me a message, I'll send them out. Since Purity funded, I was very hesitant on announcing this, but we are launching until we were fulfilled. Obviously, we're aiming to fulfill in October, but we're launching issue 2 in February 10th to be exact. And a lot's in store with this character. As I said, I'm aiming to really make Purity a long-lasting character with like different stories, and like I'm even going to be I'm playing with the idea, since the Satan of the universe is apparently already a fan favorite. I'm debating on doing a 48-page one-shot eventually with Satan. Like, what's Satan doing when Purity's up in the mortal world? So I have a lot in store with the Purity verse. I also work on Reign of Ages with Sonoma Publishing. We just funded issue 3. We're aiming to fulfill that in August, and then issue 4 is going to be coming out, and then we are planning on launching a trade paperback for Reign of Ages. So definitely stick around for that. And like I said, you could find me in New Jersey, or you could find me on Instagram and Twitter. Upcoming shows I'll probably be at Fan Expo Boston. I'm tabling with the Hubert School. I'm gonna try. I got denied a table at New York Comic Con, but I probably will be roaming around New York Comic Con, so things could change. Garden State Comic Fest. I'm doing the Winterfest with them, and I usually do a lot of New Jersey shows, but yeah, that's where you could find me. Or like I said, message me on Instagram or Twitter.
All right, so you guys hear that? Everyone make sure to check that out, and yeah, definitely keep an eye on Nick's campaigns. And until next time, guys, I am having I don't know if you guys know him on Twitter, but he calls himself he's a very young guy, even by our standards, the Art Jedi.
Oh, I know him.
Show. Yeah,
his book funded in like a day.
Oh yeah, and he's not. He's still going. Joshua Durstein is going to be coming on my show next week, so stay tuned for that episode of Vaughn Coleman Presents. I'm having a guest that's younger than me, so that's pretty nice, pretty exciting. Guy's 18, and he already has a book that's fully funded.
Does he have David Finch on the cover too? He has like a David Finch cover. I'm like, dude,
I don't know what this kid's. How this kid
I was like, yo, man.
This kid's making moves, and he's someone to keep an eye out for. So definitely getting him on. And so keep an eye out for that, and make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Check out all my socials. Link is in the description. And I'll see you guys soon. We got some good stuff coming out, and hope to see you guys. So till next time.
Thank you, Vaughn.
Of course, my